The story you're looking at with data centers is going to go on well throughout this decade, certainly.
The AI infrastructure build-out is really just getting started.
The global market right now is growing at about a 45% annual clip.
Plenty of different industries are seeing big boosts as the contracts keep rolling in.
They've got the commitments already with the hyperscalers that are building the data centers.
MarketBeat's Chris Markoch shares a list of 7 AI infrastructure stocks to include in your portfolio for the long haul.
This is a stock that you should be looking at with the eye towards the future.
Are you missing some of these key names in your portfolio? Let's dive in. Chris, so great to have you back on the show talking about the big thing that every investor is looking at right now, and that's AI. But we're looking specifically at AI infrastructure. It's something we've talked about on this channel quite a bit over the past few months, and that's because this build out is really happening in real time right now for this brand new thing. Let's talk about how big of a deal this AI infrastructure build out is.
Well, it's a massive deal for investors. And the thing that investors need to understand is that this is a thesis that's going to be going on for several years, if not really honestly, if not decades. This is taking stocks beyond just some of the more obvious names that people know of in this space. There's room for a lot of other companies in this space, and it gets investors into areas that they may not have previously considered.
I think another thing is just not to downplay how much of an investment is going into all of these different areas of AI infrastructure that we're going to talk about in this list of 7 stocks right now. But I think historically, I look at the times, when the interstate system was being built, when the railroad system was being built, or maybe when telephone lines were going up. It was a new technology at the time that took a lot of investment and years to build out. This feels even bigger than that in a lot of ways.
Right. And you could even go something more recent, I guess, as you could look at just 30 years ago when the build out of the internet was happening. And this is now something that's happening on top of the internet, but it's requiring an infrastructure that's still independent of that which we had for the internet. So it's not just something that's being added on to what we had. It has to be developed as a piece all by itself.
Well, let's get right into your list today, Chris. The list of 7 stocks that are going to be really key players in the AI infrastructure build out. Some names you might know, others might be new to you. What's the first company on your list?
Okay, so the first company on my list is nVent Electric, which the ticker symbol here is NVT. And we're starting out with talking about 2 stocks that are addressing the liquid cooling market. We've got all of these data centers that are in the process of being built. But if you go back even just 20 years or so, when the AI revolution was first being started, when you started seeing the real birth of the Mag 7, like the alphabets and the meta platforms. One of the things that these server farms need a lot of is they need power. They need access to 24/7 power, and they need to have a way to cool down all these servers and all this equipment to prevent from overheating. So this is bringing up the area of liquid cooling. It's a fast-growing segment. The global market right now is growing at about a 45% annual clip. Now, think about that when you compare that to data centers, which is growing about at a 1% compound annual growth rate. And only about 5% of the data centers are using liquid cooling today. And analysts are projecting that that's going to jump to 23% by 2028. So that sort of sets the stage for why this is a market and why this is the time to get in this market now. So specific to NVT, they have about 40% of the market right now, and it contributes to about 23% of the company's revenue. They have collaborations with all of the major hyperscalers. So we're talking about NVIDIA, we're talking about Amazon, we're talking about Microsoft, and they're providing not just solutions for today, but also for those companies' next gen platforms. So it's really right now a company that's indispensable, and it's got a lot of the market kind of locked down. Now, at the current time, some people might be thinking the stock's a little bit overvalued. It's trading at a forward PE of around 31, and the stock's had a gain of about 40% year to date. This is a stock that you should be looking at with the eye towards the future and where the future growth is. So I don't think it's the wrong time to be getting in on this stock if you haven't been in it before.
That's a really good thing to address is because looking at that growth that you talked about, a 45% growth rate for this
Right.
sector, points to signs of a lot of growth ahead for the company. I think with all of these stocks, the question is that future growth already priced in? Because a lot of investors are looking at the AI
Right.
build out, the AI infrastructure already. So, kind of across the board, do you think that a lot of these are going to be on the higher end of pricing just because investors maybe already know about them?
I do. I think for some of these stocks, investors are aware of them. Yes, you're going to be paying a little bit of a premium for the stock now, but if you're really committed to this idea of the data centers growing, then you have to think about what I just said about the compound annual growth rate. If the liquid cooling market is just in its infancy right now, then this stock's going to be worth a lot more than the whatever $94 it's trading for now in a few years. So the investment you're making today is going to seem very small compared to where the market could go. But right at the current moment, yeah, you're probably paying a little bit of a premium for the stock for its current earnings, but you're paying for the future earnings.
Yeah, very good point. Well, let's get to that second company again, also in the cooling sector that you talked about. What makes this company different?
So this company is Vertiv Holdings. The ticker symbol is VRT. And I guess what I would sit here and say with VRT is it's more of the NVT is the one that maybe isn't quite as well known in the sector. Vertiv Holdings might be the name that investors might be more familiar with. Again, they're also providing liquid cooling solutions, and the stock is up about 19% year to date, but it's had a really strong last 3-month performance. And I think a lot of the reason for that, Bridget, is because what you saw in the last earnings season was the hyperscalers like Microsoft and Meta all announcing the fact that it's all systems go as far as their capital expenditures for data centers. So there was some concern heading into earnings season that some of these hyperscalers were going to be backing down on that commitment. Nope, they're going full steam ahead. And again, that's where these companies are going to be very valuable because you have to get in on the front end of this.
Yeah, such a good point that there's a ton of investment happening in this space. We saw that in earnings. And so, right now is a time when a lot of people are excited about these companies. And while you just mentioned two cooling companies, your list doesn't include any nuclear stocks, but this is certainly a sector a lot of investors are looking at as part of the AI infrastructure build out. If you want to look at some of the top nuclear stocks out there, make sure you read our full premium report on marketbeat.com. It's free for you to check out. It's a list of the 7 top nuclear stocks to buy now ahead of the AI infrastructure build out. You can scan the QR code now or click the link we have for you in the description of this video to read that list for free right now on marketbeat.com and get some other ideas of some nuclear stocks you could add to your list as part of that AI build out story. Well, thanks for that second name on the list. Let's get to the third company on your list of 7 AI infrastructure stocks that investors should be watching right now.
So we talked about liquid cooling, and that's sort of a AI infrastructure adjacent area. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this. And so obviously one of the first names you have to talk about is NVIDIA. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, Bridget. It's covered well on this channel by a lot of other guests. NVIDIA is just one of those names that I think it's just a stock that you wanna be in, you need to be in. You could make the argument that if you're already in an ETF like the QQQ or something like that, you've already got exposure to it, but however you want to get exposure to it, you should have exposure to NVIDIA in your platform. The company just has tremendous market share, and again, it's not so much about what you're paying for the current earnings today, but it's what you're paying for those future earnings down the road. Yes, there's gonna be competitors in the space. Yes, NVIDIA probably can't sustain the type of growth it's been having, but this is a stock that's well positioned in this AI infrastructure space, and it's just a must own for many investors.
I think the question with the AI infrastructure build out and NVIDIA's role in that is how long will this continue to be a story in the build out? Or will it, once they're already built, will NVIDIA not see the same kind of growth? I mean, this has been on the early side of the AI
Right.
build out of the needing NVIDIA. And so, how long will it continue to be a part of the AI infrastructure story?
It's impossible to say for sure, but I don't necessarily look at NVIDIA and say it's kind of a one and done because the reality is that all technology is always improving and it's always modifying. It just seems like whenever NVIDIA introduces one new chip. It's already talking about the next generation of that chip and the next generation of that chip. So there's always going to be a story of continuing innovation in this sector. And you've got these hyperscalers that are going to want to have the latest version of these chips. Again, it's not to say that there aren't going to be competitors in the space, but right now they're going to have a tough time dislodging NVIDIA from that position.
That's a really good point that technology is always evolving. So it's not just a one and done kind of part of infrastructure. Great point on NVIDIA. Let's get to that fourth company on your list of AI infrastructure stocks to watch.
Right. So we're going to stay with the semiconductor area right now. We're going to look at Broadcom. Broadcom's a chip maker behind this idea of AI acceleration. It plays an important niche role in the sector. Specifically here, Broadcom's providing the application-specific integrated circuit chips, ASICs, and they also provide high-width bandwidth memory controllers and networking chips that AI systems need. So it's a competitor of NVIDIA, but it's still a competitor in sort of an adjacent way, and Broadcom has its own individual partnerships with hyperscalers, again, like we're talking about Alphabet, we're talking about Meta, we're talking about Amazon, and so these companies are actually looking to Broadcom to design ASICs that can potentially reduce their dependency on NVIDIA. That's why Broadcom's one to watch. The stock's up about 51% this year, but it's been up really strongly, about 40% in the last 3 months. That's pushed the stock pretty close to its consensus price target as well as its 52-week high. But analysts have been really excited about this stock since it reported earnings in early September. They're pushing up their price targets. The highest one is coming from Quarry, which just gave the stock a price target of $420. So Broadcom looks like one that it's been going strongly, but with a likely rally in the tech sector towards the end of the year and fueled a little bit also by lower interest rates, Broadcom's one that you're going to want to look at.
Yeah, I think this one has been in the headlines a lot in September, again, just because of
Right.
that big boost it saw post earnings. I think the question is what in the earnings shows that proof in the pudding of like, this is going to continue to grow. There is demand for the role that Broadcom is playing in the AI build out.
I think it was that announcement that you've got these other companies looking at Broadcom to reduce their dependency on NVIDIA. I think that's the big story right now because you've got other companies in the other chip makers like AMD that are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to capture market share wherever they can. And although NVIDIA's got a huge lead in that with 80% or so of the market, there is space for some of these other companies to get in.
Yeah, good point. There is still space in this market just because there's so much demand too. Well, we've got a couple of semiconductor stocks in there. What is that fifth company on your list of infrastructure stocks to look at?
The next one is Supermicro Computer. And this one might be one that some investors may turn their nose up at. They had that financial reporting problem earlier this year. But here's where I think investors need to look at Supermicro. If you're looking at NVIDIA and you're looking at Broadcom and chip stocks and you're saying they're the hearts, they're the sort of the circulatory system for how data is moving around. Well, you get to Supermicro Computer and that's the skeletal frame. That's the bones. That's the muscle. They provide these customizable servers and racks that can integrate the GPUs and the chips that are coming from NVIDIA. And again, what does that do? That makes them indispensable for these hyperscalers. They need the equipment that Supermicro provides. And it just means that as there's demand for data centers increases, there's going to be more demand for Supermicro's hardware. There's some concern here that you've got other competitors that are trying to enter into this space. Right now, Supermicro believes that it's got a engineering to order business model that will help keep the competition at bay. That remains to be seen. The stock's up about 48% in 2025. It didn't get quite a big post-earnings jump. It's only up about 4% in the last 3 months. And at two different times this year, it's met resistance at around the $60 price level. Nevertheless, that's a price target that at least one analyst, it's an analyst from Needham, believes SMCI can get back to that level. And there are some analysts that even give it a higher price target than that.
So still some room ahead to grow for SMCI. Another good one to be on the list. Let's move right on to the next one. Let's get to the sixth company on your list.
Yeah, the next one on the list is Arista Networks. Ticker symbol is ANET, ANET. So, continuing with the human body analogy, this is the body's nervous system. This is the company that provides all of those network connections that allow the AI clusters to work together. Arista's, once again, it's the dominant name in this market. The company has partnerships with Microsoft. They have partnerships with Meta. I can't stress that enough. You're looking at the stocks that are the leaders in this area for a reason, and that's because they've got the commitments already with the hyperscalers that are building the data centers, and those commitments are not going to go away. Those commitments are likely to be rock solid. So what are you looking at with the stock? It's up about 27% for the year. However, this stock has made a big move over the summer. It's been up over 57% in the last 3 months. Now, it's got a forward price to earnings of about 64 times. It's it's trading at a premium to itself and many other stocks in the tech sector, but the consensus price target is around 157.88, and that suggests that the stock maybe has about 11% upside. That's just to the consensus target, and then there are other analysts like Goldman Sachs which are giving the stock higher price targets beyond that.
I know I've already brought this up once, but I think this is a good one to talk about it again. With so much growth already, with such a big run up this summer, investors watching this right now might be like, well, is now the time I actually want to get into this stock? Or do I just watch and see for if it's going to pull back again? With all this momentum, with all of the growth ahead for this company, would you still add this to your portfolio right now?
I think I would, yes. And I mean, there's always the risk that the stock could pull back, but this is one of those stocks that analysts are still saying it's got 10% or 11% upside just to the consensus target. And then there's other people that have price targets beyond that. So it's not like it's soaring above its consensus price target right now. I think there's still room for it to grow. It's a good time to get in. You may want to just scale into your position. You may not want to go all in on the stock right now, but just add to it as you go in. But I don't think there should be much concern about getting in the stock right now.
Very good. Well, that's a new name we haven't talked about very much on the channel. So
Right.
that's a good one to add to the list. Which stock is finishing out your list of 7 AI infrastructure buys right now?
Okay, so for a lot of investors, they may be hearing something like this and their head may be spinning with all the possibilities. So a good way to get around that is just to look at an ETF. And there's ETFs coming into the market that are specifically geared or focused towards not just the technology sector, but the area of this data center, this digital space. The one that I looked at for this video is the Pacer Data and Digital Revolution ETF. Ticker symbol is TRFK. The ETF is up about, 29% for the year. It's about 18% in the last 3 months. That's kind of what you would expect for an ETF. It's not going to be outpacing the strongest of the individual stocks, but it's more than holding its own. And for people that that care about such things, it does pay us a really tiny dividend. But the reason why I liked it is because it already owns some of the names we've talked about in this presentation, like Avgo, like NVIDIA, like Arista. So it's got those names already in it. And that's one of the reasons why, if you're looking to invest in this area, this might be a really good way to go, because you get all those stocks covered and you get it without having the volatility that might come in from owning any of the individual stocks.
I think that's a really good one to add to the end of the list here for investors who don't want to try and pick all of these individual names, because there's so many companies involved in the AI infrastructure build out. This is a really good way to go for that. So thank you for that example. If you're looking for some other examples of some good AI infrastructure ETFs to look at right now, we just came out with a brand new article exactly on this right now at MarketBeat.com. It's totally free for you to look at it. It's a list of 5 different AI infrastructure and energy ETFs you can look at free right now on MarketBeat.com. Just scan the QR code quick or click that link down in the description to get that full list for free right now on MarketBeat. All right, Chris, I think the last thing I wanted to finish up talking about this list and all of the names on this list, we talk a lot about how much growth these companies could have in the next year, but how long do we expect this AI infrastructure build out story to continue, and how much growth could some of these companies see over time?
I think that the the story you're looking at with data centers is going to go on well throughout this decade, certainly. So, I mean, we're talking you're good for another 5 years. Beyond that, you could be looking into 2035, 2040. It just, the story here is we don't have this infrastructure built. The infrastructure has to be built. And for a lot of these data centers, they're being built from scratch. These projects can take 2, 3 years to get going. And I just see there just being a lot of demand for this as we go through this. We're literally building this new infrastructure. And like I was just saying, we're basically building it from scratch because these companies can't just retrofit their existing data centers for what they need for AI. They need they need new facilities and they need them quickly.
That's a really good point. This next decade, for sure, this is
Yep.
going to continue to be a story. Chris, thank you so much for this list today. I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think about the 7 names on this list? Are there others that you would add as a really good AI infrastructure place to be watching right now? Are you interested in more of those lesser known names or some of the bigger names that are, like Chris said, the leaders in this field and in their area that are going to continue to see that momentum long term? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks again for watching, everyone. And as always, happy investing.